Hi, everyone. Irit Ezips here for CSM Practice. Thank you for joining another episode in our CSM Practice podcast, all about customer success strategies, methodologies, tactical advice. And one of the things that customer success teams do oftentimes is work with large enterprise accounts. And I've been doing consulting work with various companies over the years. And what I've noticed is that there's a way to work with enterprise clients, and a lot of you know it as a higher touch model. And there's a great way of working with enterprise clients, one that actually gets you to the results that you want, which means deeper relationships with various nodes within the account, increased wallet share over time. And I think it takes more than just defining a high touch engagement model. And I wanted to explore all that with Gali Michaeli, who has 15 years of experience working with large enterprise accounts, both as individual contributor as well as an executive. And she comes to us from Explorium, which is a company in Israel that works mainly with larger accounts. So Gali, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm excited to delve in and see how you were able to take your team from working with the accounts to expanding the wallet share by tens of percentages, deepen those relationships, and creating advocacy and getting all these amazing results for your team.
Hi, Rate. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too after having watched you over the last while. So yeah, let's dive in.
Before we start, tell me a little bit about your team. How big is the CSM team at Explorium? You've been managing it for 3 years and now moved to an operations executive role. What did you grow the team from what size to what size over those 3 years that you managed it?
So we grew it from one CSM who started about a month before I did to a team of 10 of us at most. It's been an interesting path. Explorium is a platform that is mainly focused on enterprise clients, but over the years, we've had clients of all shapes and sizes. As we grew, it was about striking a balance between building process, building a method, building a team that scales, and still tailoring to all of the different types of clients' needs, especially the larger ones where even as you scale, you need to give them that white glove treatment in order to really get the most out of those accounts and deliver the best value to them.
If you look at the first month you started at the end of the 3 years, what are some of the significant strengths that you were able to bring into the team? And what were the main areas of improvement over those 3 years from team's capability standpoint?
I think that the easier part was learning the product, onboarding on the product, delivering some of the basic milestones in the CSM's journey with a client. Whereas the places where I think the team shines and we've been able to grow in the last few years are the places where it sometimes feels like more of an art than a science. You say high touch, but at the end of the day, what you do during all of those high touch meetings and interactions with clients is oftentimes led by experienced people who are good at what they do, and oftentimes feels really hard to teach. That's where we've been able to create not even so much a process, but let's call it a method to the madness, where we understand that it's a combination of excellent client delivery. And sometimes even in the world of product focused companies, and a client that big needs a solution to a big business problem. And you need to work hand in hand with them. You need to work with them, not just to let them use your product, but to deliver the solution that they're delivering internally, and to understand that even though you're a small startup and you get to talk to the CEO 7 times a day, for them, they're preparing that internal deck for 3 weeks and everything goes into that. And so working with them, understanding their process, understanding the organizational dynamics and internal influencers, and building strong relationships from top to down or vice versa, to really keep it personal, making them your champion. I think that's where we've managed to excel. One of the stories I like to tell is that first CSM that I was handed when I first joined, super talented, super hungry, but pretty new at this job. One of the first things I told him was, data scientist that you're working with, that customer, make him your BFF. And then find that same person with every customer you're working with. And these were smaller customers in his case. And make them your BFF. Take an interest in them as you're interacting, as if you actually care to make them your friend. Maybe some of them will become your friends later on. The point is you take a genuine interest.
So you had this one guy, obviously a relationship magician, but you ended up forming a team that was able to be highly consultative with these large accounts. And what were the results of building that type of team? What were the changes you were able to share in terms of maybe lagging indicators, the impact on the business that this team was able to produce because you built it the way you did? And what were the main results once you took on the initiative to build a highly consultative team to work with those accounts?
The first part of that was the profiles that we were hiring for. And I think over time we went more senior, actual consulting experience with some of the people. And that has definitely proven to be one of the things that has enabled us to have conversations with executives, have good outcomes. Best outcome from where I'm standing is that we were able to, on the one hand, build a process, health scores, milestones within the journey of the customer with us, incentives for CSMs, and the whole shebang of how to build a CS operation. Not a huge one, but something that you only start doing as you scale. And we did scale with some of those smaller customers. And yet at the same time, we were managing some of the biggest brands on the planet, I would even say.
If you didn't hire for that type of skill set, what would have been the impact on the business then?
We would not have been able to deliver what we've been able to deliver. In a startup, it takes a long time for the founders and some of the key players, whether it's executives or just core star players across the business, to not be leading all the top engagements. Some of what we were able to do is to have the key CS players leading some of those top engagements over the years. It also made us realize that not only is that possible, it's the right way to go. And that is the muscle that we want to keep working on and keep improving upon. And that includes hiring the right profiles, but also giving them a place at the table and making sure that we're empowering them with both the tools they need, but also the teams that they need. In our case, we're talking about support from our internal data scientists, making sure that we're empowering the right people with the right tools and support to walk into that room with that customer and deliver everything that they possibly can.
So sounds like by hiring more mature and senior resources right off the bat allowed the company to scale because the founders were not needing to be engaged with those accounts. There wasn't that dependency. You were able to wean them off of that a little faster, if you will, to some degree. Otherwise, they would have been much more involved and thereby not being able to really address potentially growth strategies.
Yeah.
The other impact is, I know you've reached the ability to expand the wallet share for some of these accounts. Do you think that by hiring that type of skill set, a more mature resource fairly early in the company's life cycle stage, helped with that? Were there any other results that you think you would not have been able to do unless you had that type of a mature, more senior team?
One of the things I'm personally most proud of is working with a huge brand. One of the things we were able to do right after the first 6 months, after which we got a 7-figure annual renewal from a low 6-figure deal, which at that time in our company's life cycle was also the biggest customer on the table. So it actually made a situation where the biggest customer actually came from CS and not from sales at that time. High scaling, high growth startup in that moment to be part of a CS team that is able to both deliver results that bring the customer the outcomes that they're looking for, but then also take the helm with the commercial conversation because we're the ones who have those relationships in place and make that happen, obviously with CEO support for a deal like that at that stage of the company, obviously. But I think that was a moment where I kind of was able to look in the mirror and say, we've done something today. I think that was the point at which not only did we do something right, But we then sat down and tried to really look back at what did we do right? What could we have done better? And what are we now doing with both this customer and the next 5 on the list to make sure that we're replicating that type of success?
The relationship foundation and the consultative foundation.
Relationship and delivering outcomes, making sure that we're working hand in hand with our champions to make them look good, make it clear across the organization what our role in things is. That's the real role of the enterprise CSM. Kind of has to be a jack of all trades, a little bit of an SDR in a way, get all those intros to all those other departments. Obviously, a little bit commercial, even in companies where sales are leading the sales process. You do own a lot of those relationships. Definitely project managers and product experts and everything all in one. And that makes for a very hard, I think, profile to hire for. But when you find those people, they're the key players that you want to keep on and on.
Honestly, Gali, if I went to a startup CEO and I said, hey, hire these amazingly senior resources, jacks of all trade, great at consulting, product experts, so great at technical abilities, I think we're looking at a large budget, larger than hire junior people, which that would be a dream come true. Can you hire a junior person and teach them how to do that? But no, you were like, you know what, let's just hire the senior one. Obviously, it panned out because you were able to hold very large accounts with very large budget spend with you during hard economic times. And you were able to expand that wallet share when the economy was in a growth mode. But did you have any concerns, any fears when you first approached your founders and said, hey, this is what I want to do?
First of all, the environment was favorable in the sense that we had just raised a very large A, B, and then C round close upon one another. And so we were able to make those investments. Part of the reason for raising such large rounds at the time was in order to be able to make the right investments in our people. At that time, it probably wasn't as hard a decision as it would maybe have been today. Mm-hmm. But with that experience, and even in today's economic climate, it is very clear to us the type of profiles that we want to hire, in order, at least that part of our book of business. We clearly understand now that it's much cheaper to invest in the right person than to hire and rehire the wrong ones. And right and wrong can, in some cases, also have to do with seniority. There's always more to it. Skills and hunger and character and DNA fit and a lot of other things. But I think that with enterprises, just understanding the cultural aspects of how those types of businesses work and how to operate in the whole organizational dynamics is critical.
Can you tell me a little bit about tools? You talk a lot about CS Ops. Can you talk about what did you arm these highly talented senior people with to ensure that you get maximum value out of the investment in them and that you empower them to be successful with your clients? Did you invest in any specific activities that you sort of recommended they would do, like QBR, success plans? Did you invest in any solutions like CS tools or other technologies to amplify the potential impact that they had on accounts and their success?
I mainly invested in both onboarding and continually training. And in my case, the team was small enough to really be close one-on-one training with either myself or director on the team, where we were able to not just train on the relationship building aspect or when to do a QBR or how to do the QBR, but on the depth of both our product, which is complex and technical, and of the client side, of just asking and re-asking questions like, who is your champion and what are their interests and who is their boss and what are their interests and who are the influencers and who's on the team and who's doing what and what are the outcomes that they're looking for. And I think that when you ask people those questions 10 times a week for months on end, they start answering them automatically. And so I was very adamant about making sure that my team knows the answers to those types of questions about their customers all the time.
How did you hold them accountable to actually asking these questions? Did you ask them to document the answers somewhere? Did you create dashboards? And was there anything else you asked them to do to that effect?
I held them accountable to the key milestones. Just make sure that I come to them and ask them a question and they can answer it. And if they can't answer it, whether or not they write down the answer, They go find it and they come back to me with it. And I hold them accountable to making sure that they get that answer.
It sounds like the way that you held them accountable is through your one-on-one meetings. It sounds like you had a very clear agenda. You had a very clear intent. And this is when you actually had those hard conversations around what do you really know about this account and doubled down on whether or not they were executing the strategy that you laid down.
Yes, my one-on-ones and my team's one-on-ones, their managers, when relevant, were both super structured. And I made sure that at least every 2-3 weeks, we would review their book of business, or at least the top customers in their book of business. And we would know what the status is. What are our goals? What are we trying to expand? What are we trying to do with this customer? And that we have all the answers to the questions that we believe will enable us to do that. And the questions are definitely documented. I think that's the important part. Our playbook mostly has questions in it.
One of the styles that you led this very senior team that obviously kind of like knows what they're doing because they've been doing it for so long is just to frame the type of questions you'd like them to weave into conversations with clients while they're building relationships and expanding their relationship with that account. Do you also invest in consolidating best practices around how do we communicate success plans to clients and what is the strategy in our understanding of their accounts? What did you find was mostly successful in making sure that everybody's following these best practices?
To be honest, I think in our case, and maybe in any complex product working with enterprises, the real best practice lies in being able to connect the dots between our product and, in our case, our data and our capabilities and the customer's business problems. That's where the magic happens when people are both not just experienced enough on the customer management aspect and the best practices of building success or delivery plans, but also technical enough or deeply enough immersed in the product to be able to connect the dots with something that isn't necessarily super straightforward. This isn't like a super simple product that you just onboard.
Create invoice. It's a lot more complex than that. Yeah,
exactly. See if the machine learning model can use this or that data. The data scientists are struggling with it. And so if you can connect the dots and say, you know what, actually, if you do it this way and use that data and put these things together, then we can deliver your outcomes. And I think that the only way to be able to do that is through very specific, concrete, on-the-job experience. The best CSMs have been able to get to that, or the best CSMs on my teams have been able to get to that. And it takes time usually. It took me time as well because you need to learn both your world and the customer's world really well.
So maybe like a little bit solution architecture skills in play for these large enterprise and also an enterprise software, to be honest, that requires some deep expertise from a technical standpoint.
Exactly.
Looking back, 3 years, you managed the team, you grew the team from 1 to 10. What did you learn? What do you have you to do to sort of like overcome some of the challenges you met along the way? So if somebody else, CS executive, just inherited large enterprise accounts with highly complex systems, what would be some of the lessons learned that you would share with them?
First of all, whatever you're investing in those relationships, invest more across the board from the IC to the C levels. Meet them more, invest more in those relationships, ask more what they need and what they want and what's not working and what their feedback is. However much you're doing it, just double it. That's one thing definitely I learned. And I feel like there were also a lot of places where both I personally and my team with my direction didn't do enough of that. And we did also miss opportunities because of that. And the second thing I would say is I think that the best teams are diverse teams, different types of skill sets. There's a level of importance to experience and seniority, but I find that they've been learning so much from each other and from their different experiences with their different clients and their different approaches to problem solving, that obviously I don't have all the answers and I definitely can't teach them even the things that I do know. And so it's really about creating a team that can self-grow in a way.
Teach each other, rely on each other. So it's not only dependent on you as the leader
Absolutely.
of the team, but actually there's a symbiosis. And if you can foster a collaboration environment, the sum is greater than the whatever you
Much greater.
Awesome. Well, Gali, thank you so much for joining me. I really want to appreciate you for taking the time. I know you also have a young baby at home, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Of course, yeah. So guys, if you have any questions for Gali about how to manage these types of clients and want to learn more from her experience, she's obviously available to do one-on-one coaching, and I will leave her to the LinkedIn profile in the comments below so you can reach out to her. Feel free to write a comment on the YouTube video and I'll make sure she replies if you do. So if you like this video and this podcast episode and this interview, please give us a like. It helps the channel tremendously. Subscribe and hit that notification button so that you can get notified anytime we have new interviews with amazing customer success executives. Gali, thank you so much.